So go out, learn, keep yourself equipped, be prepared for the opportunity. When the opportunity comes, you have to be prepared for it. You can't start preparing when you get an interview call or interview invite.
I love that.
Be prepared for it, and yeah, you'll make it when the opportunity comes to your door.
Welcome everyone to the TechGuide podcast, where we give actual advice to those wanting to break into tech or looking for their next gig. We have Sai Teja Chava on the podcast today, who's machine learning engineer at Instacart and has also worked at companies like Google and Microsoft. Welcome to the podcast today. So excited to have you on and talk a little bit more about machine learning and your background.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me on your show. And I'm excited to be here and share my insights to help the audience.
Yes, we're excited for that insight. But let's take us back to the young days. You've been in computer science your whole life. You went to USC to study computer science. Take me to the early childhood days, though. Like, what were some ways that like you fell in love with like computer science and technology at a young age? Is there a specific game or specific project?
To answer that question, I might have to dig a little bit into my background. I'll try to keep it short. So I come from India, so I'm an immigrant. I'm not born in the United States. So I come from southern part of India. So I don't know how much audience and you know about India. So people from India most probably get into two professions. One is engineering and one is being a doctor. So most people don't even know the other professions, because I think you grow up very close to your parents, and your parents make a lot of choices for you until you graduate. I think my parents were generous enough to buy me a computer. So maybe United States is a developed country and a lot of people have easy access to computers, but back in my hometown, having a computer was a luxury. So when I was in my third grade, I think my parents were generous enough to buy me a desktop, and I had access to this desktop from very early age. Like all of my friends and cousins, they did not have access until their 10th grade to a computer. So I used to play games mostly on it back in my childhood. In my third grade, me and my brother, who is a couple of years younger than me, we used to fight to get computer time to play games. And I think that's how I got interested into computer science in general. So whenever once a month, my dad used to take me to buy games from the shop, and then I initially, when I was a kid, I used to think like they have some company who releases these games. They does it once in a while, like every year. They have a lot of games, but they don't release it once. They do it every year. I did not know like they have to develop these, and it takes time and all. So I used to wait for the next version of GTA. I used to play GTA a lot. So I think over time I realized that there's a lot of hard work and a lot of computer science things goes into developing these games. So that's when I started slowly getting into. I think when I took computer science as my major in my undergrad, it was not only about my passion. I think it was also about job opportunities. I've seen like people who graduated from computer science grabbing high packages and high offers. So I thought your life would be easier if I get into computer science. So I think it's both a mix of a passion and also mix of where the market is going, because I did not have a strong opinion back then. I also wanted to become a doctor, but my parents thought I am not good enough in education to become a doctor, because getting a degree in becoming a doctor was much harder compared to engineering in their mindset. So they did not allow me to pursue that. So that's where it started.
I like that it all started from like playing GTA, because I mean, everyone played GTA. A lot of males growing up played GTA growing up. So I feel like that's a really cool usage case of like how your love for like designing games and like computer science comes from. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about getting that master's degree at USC. You also got your MBA from Illinois. But most importantly as well, like you have worked with some great companies, Microsoft, Google, and now Instacart. Take me to landing at Microsoft. Let's go back to December 2019. You're working at Cisco up until this point, then an opportunity comes up with Microsoft. How did this opportunity come up, and what would be some tips to break into a company like Microsoft?
I feel I got a bit lucky. I'll give you a little bit of background around that. So my master's was my master's was not specific to data science. It was MS in computer science. So general computer science. So I did not do any specialization. The reason why I did not pursue specialization was at that time, my friends and my well-wishers who were guiding me had this perception that getting into a specialization and having a specialization will restrict the kind of opportunities that you'll have. Like if you get a data science specialization, you'll be only restricted to data science jobs. So as I told you, I'm an immigrant, so I have to get a job in 3 months from graduating. I can't like sit in the sidelines waiting to
Oh
find the
man.
best job. So I wanted to increase my chances of getting a job. So I went with the MS in computer science, but my course had an opportunity. I think a lot of other MS courses have an opportunity where you can choose your electives, whatever you want to do.
Yep.
So as an elective, I chose my electives in computer vision, ML, and deep learning. So even though I am not enrolled in some ML classes, I used to go and sit in ML classes to learn about them. And I also did a lot of courses on Coursera. So like there are deep learning and machine learning specializations available on Coursera
Interesting.
where you can get a degree and also learn a lot for a small amount of fee. So if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I've listed all the courses that I've done. So out of college, I wanted to get into a machine learning job, but I was not able to get into, as I told, and I chose Cisco as my first job. So while I was working for Cisco, I always had passion to get into ML, but I never got opportunities when I applied on career portals and all. I never heard responses back. So one fine day, it was in October 2019 when I was working for Cisco. A Microsoft recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn about an opportunity at Microsoft in the computer vision area. So I think machine learning, computer vision, deep learning, they're all like interlinked. So I think it's hard to differentiate because a lot of I mean, if you take a step back, deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Deep learning is a branch of machine learning, and deep learning is used very heavily to solve many of the computer vision problems. So they're pretty much tied and interlinked. When this recruiter reached out to me, I just interviewed for Microsoft, and then I was able to get an offer. But I think the reason why I got interview invite from Microsoft recruiter was when I was doing my master's, I did an internship from a company called Schlumberger, and that internship was focused on Internet of Things and deep learning and computer vision. So I've listed everything on my LinkedIn profile. You can go back and look what I've done there. So I think my profile, I mean, I don't know what happened in the background, but if I had to make a best guess, I think my profile popped up because of having that experience on my resume. And then
Interesting.
I think getting interview was hard. Like being invited for the interview was the toughest part because I never struggled making it to the offer stage once I got an interview. So I think getting invited to the interview is always the hardest part for most. I think there are a lot of skilled engineers out there, skilled people. I think these days I see a lot of hardworking professionals out there equipping themselves with a lot of side projects, personal projects. But getting that interview invite is the toughest part, I would say.
I think what I really liked about that was the how you basically did courses on your own to learn a little bit more about like deep learning, like machine learning.
I think adding a little bit on top of that. So I mean, pretty much recruiters, when they go out there hunting for people, so they search on some terms, right, like deep learning and machine learning and things like that. So I think it's a mix of combination of me listing those courses on my profile and having that internship actually helped me to maybe come up on more recruiter searches. And that's how I think I got into Microsoft. So once I got into Microsoft, I started working more on machine learning side. And then from there, the path became much easier for the next jobs because you have experience on your resume from big companies working in machine learning, and then it's easier to hop from there. So I think the first one is getting the first one is the hardest one.
Yeah. And what tips would you give to someone? As you say, it's the hardest one. Like what are like 2 tips you would give to someone to get that first job?
I'm expecting audience to be wide range of people. So if you're especially in college, I would definitely target doing internships. So I think getting internships is the key. So I think the market is pretty volatile and the hiring has slowed down a lot. So it's getting even harder to get an internship. Whether it's paid internship or unpaid internship, just go for it. Like when you're in college, that's the best time for you to learn. You don't have any pressure from external people and things like that. So I would say I think getting internships is the key. And then I think I usually keep myself very active on LinkedIn. So I would also suggest to all the folks that usually ask me for guidance or insights on how you get jobs or how you keep hopping, because after my first job at Cisco, all the jobs, like if you look at Microsoft, Google, Instacart, all the opportunities I got through LinkedIn. So every time, even I never applied for Microsoft, I never applied for Google, I never applied for Instacart. So all these recruiters were able to find me on LinkedIn, and they were able to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and that's how I interviewed for them. When they reached out, And when they explained me about the opportunity, I went ahead and interviewed with those companies, and that's how I got the job. I only had to go to the careers website or LinkedIn's jobs and had to apply for the first job. So I think keep your LinkedIn profile updated, up to date, and also like I said, try getting internships. If internships is not possible, try to do some personal projects and list everything.
Yeah.
Like having a good GitHub profile, having good personal projects, and doing some special, especially when if you're targeting new grad jobs, having doing courses, doing specialization courses. I mean, a lot of people I see doing these courses just to get the certificate, but don't do that. Try to learn as much as possible, because I mean, getting a certificate and listing 100 certificates on your profile does not add value sometimes. So yeah, that would be my take.
Interesting. Yeah, I think just having the courses and certificates sometimes like it's beneficial, but like what's the real value there? So it's actually having like a GitHub profile or internship experience where you can like talk about those a little more in depth, because I feel like courses are like they're courses, like yeah, there are value
Exactly.
there, but there's nothing like actually doing like projects, project-based work.
That's right. So I also, touching upon a little bit on the project, since you mentioned about that, I also did some specialization on Udacity. So it's very expensive, actually. I would not recommend to a lot of folks. Udacity is very expensive, on top of $1,000, but you get to do some projects. I mean, these are not super big projects that as they market, but at least you get some projects on your resume. So if you have some budget to spend a few hundred or close to $1,000 or more, then I would say Udacity. But the most value that I've seen is on Coursera compared to other platforms.
Yeah. Can you speak to a specific, I mean, you have your courses all laid out here on LinkedIn, but can you speak to a specific course that you thought was beneficial that like everyone should take if they're interested?
I would say there's a deep learning specialization. It's been, I think, more than 5 years since I've done that. I don't remember the exact name, but it's by Andrew Ng. I think it's deeplearning.ai. It's a 5-course specialization, deep learning specialization. So that's one of the specialization that, I mean, Andrew Ng does a very good job in explaining it in layman terms so that anybody can pick up. So there's also machine learning specialization on from Stanford, which I think these are the 2 specializations that I would recommend to anybody starting out. And from there, I think there are numerous other ones, but these are the ones that I find most valuable, especially somebody starting out there.
Yeah. Did they ever ask about the like courses or certificates in your job interviews?
I don't think they ever asked, but I think it helped me a lot in answering the questions that are posed to me by the interviewers. But I don't remember anybody asking me that, hey, you have done this certification, so that's why we are interested in you, or we think it's great that you have done this. Because I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many certifications that you do. You have to take the concepts and you should be able to apply to solve a business world problem. So I think these courses actually helped me build better intuitions about different ML concepts. So when I was attending these interviews, even today, if somebody asks me, sometimes I go back and revise some concepts because I don't remember everything. I mean, we humans forget stuff, and then because I don't use every single concept in my day-to-day job, so I go back and revise. So I think they help you build nice intuitions for you behind what's happening behind the scenes, because machine learning and deep learning, or computer vision, NLP, LLMs, whatever you take, whatever you pick. So each of them has a lot of math behind it. They are not like fancy terms, or they are not like some libraries where you can call an API and get it done. So they have a lot of math behind it. So as an engineer, so we are not statisticians, or we don't have PhD in machine learning.
Yeah.
So the best that we can do is try to build intuitions on what is happening when you try to use some library like TensorFlow, Keras, PyTorch, or scikit-learn. So you need to know what's happening behind the scenes. That's how you can use the model or build a model to solve some problem. So these courses actually help you to build those intuitions and build those concepts where you can. You don't need to know too much math. At the same time, you need to know some level of math in order to be a machine learning engineer. I think these courses find the right balance. So, but yeah, I think going back to your question, I don't think anybody hired me because I had those certificates, but maybe got popped up in those searches because of how LinkedIn works. I'm assuming that they search on some keywords, and based on what you have in your profile, whether your profile pops up or not is based.
When you were interviewing for these companies, so I know they didn't ask about like the courses or certificates, so I'm guessing there's a lot of project-based work, but is there a question that comes to mind that was like a very tricky question for you to answer?
I can't think of a super tricky question, but in general, like, I mean, So machine learning I worked as a machine learning engineer, right? So you are still a computer science engineer. So machine learning engineers has to do still good amount of coding in their interview. So I can talk a little bit about how the interviews were structured. So you have interview rounds where they assess your coding. So you have to really be a good coder. Like I'm a
Yeah.
machine learning engineer. Being a machine learning engineer doesn't offset you from not knowing coding. So you have to be a really good coder. And then it depends on if you're starting out as an entry level, they might focus more on system design questions and ML design questions. But if you're not the mid to senior kind of level, they don't ask you ML design questions. In general, they ask you about different concepts, what what different algorithms are and when to use which particular one. So I usually go to these interviews with open minded. It's not like it's like having a conversation, right? Like you and I are having today. So
Yeah.
it's not it's all about they try to understand given a problem how you try to approach it and how you try to solve it.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like a yes or no question. They ask you they come with, they come and ask you 10 theoretical questions and you say yes or no or give one word answers and you're done with it. So it's all about how you solve a problem, like what all tools you have in your toolkit, given a business problem, how you solve it. So that's how I would approach it. So I usually go to most of the interviews with open-minded and just try to think out loud, given a problem to solve,
Yeah.
think out loud and understand why you're doing what you're doing rather than simply explain concepts theoretically.
Yeah. I know you go into it with an open mind, but is there any preparation? Because I feel like if I was interviewing for Google, I would prepare like out of my mind, like
Of
almost
course,
be
yeah, of
over
course.
prepared. Yeah. But like what preparation did you go into like Instacart or Google?
You for sure have to prepare. I used to prepare a lot when I have interview schedule. It's you can't
Yeah.
walk away and come up with flying colors because these interviews are really hard. So as I told you, so you have a mix of rounds. You have interview rounds focused on coding, and for coding, of course, I know most people might have know it's lead code. So you
Yeah.
go into lead code and practice improve your coding skills. And for machine learning, so you have for machine learning, and I used to have machine learning and computer vision kind of interview rounds because my specialization was a little bit on the computer vision side. So I would go back and look at, as I told you, like I have the PDFs or the slide decks from these courses,
Yeah.
and go back. I also have a slide decks from my courses back in my master's. So I go back and quickly skim through them to revise all the concepts. And if I don't find if I need more help with some particular concept, of course, go back and watch some YouTube videos.
For sure.
So yeah, I think revising my notes and also digging deep into some of the concepts on YouTube uh, is what I would do when I approach. Yeah, I think the preparation takes at least a month, especially on the coding, because these I mean, at least the companies that I work for have heavy emphasis on coding. So 50% of the interview is focused on coding, and other
Wow.
50 and 40% is on ML, and 10% is on behavioral and leadership. So
Interesting.
so yeah, I think all the roles that I worked on are have heavy emphasis on it, coding. So I think lead code, I would struggle more with competitive coding rather than ML because ML questions are more straightforward, more theoretical. It's more like having a conversation. You don't have to do anything. You just go and talk to the interviewer and like try to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Like if they ask you about some particular algorithm, you try to like if they ask you about XGBoost, XGBoost is one of the ML algorithm that I use daily in my job. If they ask me specific questions of why XGBoost, how do you tune the model and things like that, I just talk about how to do that. But coding, you're given a question, you have to solve that the best efficient way possible. And there are some pretty hard lead code questions out there that sometimes you can get into. So that would be the thing that I would become nervous about more than the ML part.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like when you go into these interviews, I mean, you just broke it down like what the percentage is, but just knowing your technical stuff, especially when you're talking to someone from Google, because they'll know if you don't know, which is I think is exciting. But I think it's cool that they'll like the behavioral interviews as well. Like you can't overlook that part, especially in like a technical role. We've heard that many times in the podcast. You cannot overlook like the interpersonal, like leadership type of interviews.
If you are starting out as a new grad, I think the emphasis on leadership questions is minimal. I think Amazon is one company that always focuses on leadership questions starting from the SD1 kind of role.
Yeah.
But the other companies, right? I don't think, I mean, you have behavioral rounds, but they don't have heavy emphasis or heavy focus on them because they know you're starting out. You haven't worked in a corporate setting, you are, and they are hiring you as a new grad. You're not a senior engineer or you're not a staff level engineer. But as you grow, I think leadership becomes very critical. So
Interesting.
as you grow more into senior roles and go more into staff roles, that's when I think your leadership and your experience comes into the picture. If you are interviewing for Amazon, as I told, has like I think 30 to 40% of Amazon interview process is focused on leadership. So
Interesting.
that is a significant percentage compared to any other companies. Like I've got offers from Facebook, I've got offers from Apple, I worked at Google, Microsoft. So I've not seen any company having more than 20% of the focus on leadership or behavior.
Interesting.
Even at my level, now I'm a senior engineer. So even at my level, not more than 20% of the focus is on leadership. But Amazon, since I always interview with Amazon when I go out and looking for a job hop. So Amazon has 40% emphasis on leadership questions. So you can't discount leadership behavioral questions at all for Amazon. But for
Yeah.
others, you can focus on the rest. I think you can still focus, but ignore. Don't have to worry too much about.
Yeah, I remember when I interviewed with Amazon for like one of their fulfillment manager roles, like right after school. Like it's a fun role. It would have been pretty sweet, but I remember a lot of it. The prep calls for those, they really emphasize on like their STAR technique for interviewing. They just beat us in the head with the STAR technique. When it's a great interviewing tactic, but they like made sure all of our answers were like STAR technique when we were talking about like their leadership principles and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. I think Amazon recruiters send out to you ahead of time. The recruiters also mention you that try to follow STAR methods and things like that to be successful at an interview.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you said that they actually have the most like leadership, like interviewing for leadership qualities compared to like a Google or like a Microsoft. So I think I don't know. I think that's pretty interesting.
I think for Microsoft, I did not have any leadership or behavioral round. For Google, there is one. So out of five rounds on onsite, I think Google has one behavioral leadership round. So that's around, one out of five is 20%. But for Microsoft, I don't think I had behavioral or leadership at all. Maybe somebody asked me in my final round for 10 minutes on some behavioral question, but yeah, apart from that. But I think Instacart also had a behavioral leadership round, which I would say around 15-20%. Because I'm a senior, maybe I had it. If you are starting out as an early grad, maybe I'm not sure if you. I think you might not have it, or even if you have it, the emphasis is less.
I want to pivot as we kind of wind down the interview. So you've worked with all these companies, you've gotten in with like all these great companies. You have worked with like some phenomenal people, I'm sure. Can you kind of speak to like those traits that like the highest performers you've worked with like all kind of possess?
So I think the strongest engineers that I've worked with, most people are really good, humble, and they're ground to earth. So they make me, every time I go and talk to them, like I was just having a conversation with one of the engineers this morning, and I felt pretty dumb. Like I felt like, okay, do I know anything about machine learning? Do I even know how to pronounce or spell machine learning?
Yeah.
That's what I felt like when I spoke to them. So I think there's a lot of things out there, like the machine learning as a field. Like if you look at LLMs, right? I think even though I'm in machine learning, I personally am machine learning, I don't know much about LLMs. I haven't worked on that particular area because it's a specialized field of machine learning where NLP gets used a lot. So I haven't worked on that. So the field itself is growing pretty exponentially and pretty rapidly. So even like I graduated 5 years ago. So if I was speaking to somebody who has been on the job for 20 years, they might feel like I'm a recent graduate. So I feel very outdated with a lot of technologies and a lot of algorithms. Like given the number of research papers that get published in the deep learning area and in the NLP area and the computer vision area. So I think the strongest engineers, going back to your question, the strongest engineers keep themselves updated all the time. So the really strong engineers who are like staff engineers and even the level above. So I've seen them personally going and studying, looking at research papers that have recently come out. They go and they study those research papers, and they keep themselves up to date all the time. And they're also pretty humble. You can go and talk to them. They try to teach you, and they try to tell you whatever they know, and they never have this attitude or something that they're the best person. So I think they're easy to work with. So I think they always have the open mind. So when I started my job, so I really knew about this new algorithm that I've studied out of college.
Yeah.
So this person that I was talking to did not know much about that algorithm. So they had all ears open to me. They were listening to me. They were trying to
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
they were excited about that I knew something more rather than looking at me like, hey, you just came out of college. I knew way more than this guy. So why should I hear to this guy?
I love
So
that.
yeah, that's what I would say. They would always keep them. They look at research, what's happening. They attend conferences. They keep themselves up to date. They have open mind and they're pretty strong. One of the reason that I forgot to mention is they are really strong in mathematical fundamentals. So as I told you, machine learning has a lot of math underlying beneath it. So if in order to catch up with the research, if in order for you to go and understand some research paper out there, you need to have some math background. So since these people are really good in math, they can quickly go and look at the research paper and look at the meat. They don't have to study all the starting sections, ending section, and all. They can focus on the meat of the research paper and then can quickly get the gist of what the research paper is trying to do. So they can understand the math. So these math equations will go out in those research papers. They can look at those equations and get what it is trying to do and be able to
That's
map with
crazy.
whatever they already know. So I think that's the hardest part. Like, I mean, to be honest, I don't master that skill. Like if I have to go and I'm not super good in math. Like I have my blind spots. So when I go and look at these, I can't quickly grasp them. So I'm also trying to improve in that area.
Yeah, I feel like everything just comes back to having like good math
Yeah,
fundamentals, no matter where
yeah.
you're at.
I also see a lot of people with math degree ending up as machine learning engineers. Like
Interesting.
not only people with computer science degree end up in machine learning. I've seen a lot of people with statistics and math degrees. So I think they can quickly read these research papers and understand what these algorithms are doing much better than software engineers. I think software engineers are better at doing coding. Like you are as an engineer, like if you're a computer science graduate, you are good at building systems at scale. You're good at
Yeah.
writing lots of code, designing websites, writing backend code and things like that. But I mean, when I say you, that at least from my experience, I've seen engineers always struggle a little bit on the math side because you don't understand all the heavy math that goes into ML, and
Yeah.
that's where you can't actually go and create a new ML algorithm and write research papers. So yeah, so even if you have some math background and statistical background, that makes your job easier to become an ML engineer. You just have to learn some computer science basic fundamentals and coding to be an ML engineer out there.
I love that. And wind us down. You gave us a ton of tips here from just like job interviews, like high achievers. But if there is like one tip that you could give someone that's 21, 22, senior in college, what would that advice be to them?
Just go out there. I think the job market is pretty tough right now. So my company hasn't been hiring for more than a year. The company that I work for. So stay motivated. I think the market is going to get better, and stay focused. Don't focus too much on getting a specific job or something. Like this is the time if especially in college. I think this is the time for you to try out different things, learn different technologies. I mean, machine learning is a vast field. I haven't seen anybody who's a machine learning engineer or machine learning scientist who felt like they knew everything. So the field is, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. So go out, learn, keep yourself equipped, be prepared for the opportunity. When the opportunity comes, you have to be prepared for it. You can't start preparing when you get an interview call or interview invite.
I love that.
Be prepared for it, and yeah, you'll make it when the opportunity comes to your door.
I love that. Well, Sai, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you so much. Went by quick. Where can people learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, I'm usually pretty active on LinkedIn, so I can share my LinkedIn profile. So I'm usually very active and respond to most 99% of the messages that I get. Even if I cannot help, I just say that, okay, unfortunately, I cannot respond or I cannot help in the area that you're asking me a suggestion for. So yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you find any opportunities on Instacart's careers page, if Instacart is hiring, and if you're interested in an opportunity that you come across, feel free to send it my way. I'm happy to put in a referral if that increases your chances of getting into the company that I work for.
Awesome. Well,
Good
thank
luck.
you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Great episode. So thank you.